The house on Hollow Creek Road stood at the edge of the woods, an old Victorian home with chipped white paint and shuttered windows that seemed to frown at the world. It had been empty for years before Evan and Sophie bought it. The realtor had smiled too much when he handed them the keys. "Couple like you," he said, "will bring life back into this place." Evan had laughed. "That's the plan." Sophie hadn't laughed. She had just stared at the house, something twisting inside her gut. She couldn't explain it, but the house felt wrong. The air around it carried a damp coldness, even under the summer sun. "Babe," Evan said, snapping her out of it, "you okay?" "Yeah," she lied. They walked through the front door, hand in hand. The smell of dust and rot greeted them. Floorboards creaked like old bones. Sunlight slipped through half-drawn curtains, carving long shadows across the walls. The house was huge, 4 bedrooms, a basement, and an attic, but it felt crowded. Not with people, but with memories. On their first night, they unpacked only the essentials. Mattress on the floor, boxes still sealed, takeout containers on the counter. Evan leaned against the kitchen counter. "This place will be great once we fix it up." Sophie tried to smile. "Yeah, great." But that night, long after Evan fell asleep, she heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, careful, deliberate. At first, she thought maybe Evan had gotten up, but when she turned, he was still beside her, breathing softly. The footsteps stopped above their room. Then, faintly, a voice, low and distorted, whispered something through the ceiling. "You're next." Sophie froze. Her heart hammered in her chest. She listened, straining her ears, but the whisper didn't come again. She told herself it was the wind, or a dream. But when she woke up the next morning, there were muddy footprints in the hallway, small, bare, and leading away from their bedroom door. The next few days passed quietly, almost normally. Evan worked on repairs, scraping wallpaper and fixing pipes, while Sophie tried to make the house feel like home. But every night, she woke up to sounds, footsteps, whispers, faint knocks from inside the walls. Evan teased her. "You're just spooking yourself. It's an old house, sophomore. It settles. Creaks. You know, old houses don't whisper names," she said quietly. Evan frowned but didn't answer. That night, as they sat on the porch drinking coffee, a man walked by on the empty road. He was tall, thin, wearing a dark coat despite the warmth. He didn't glance at them, just stopped for a moment at their mailbox, tilted his head, and whispered something they couldn't hear. Sophie felt her stomach twist. "Did you see that?" Evan turned. The man was gone. They checked the road, but it was empty. On the 4th night, Sophie woke to the sound of humming. A woman's voice, soft, distant, coming from downstairs. She nudged Evan awake. "Do you hear that?" He rubbed his eyes. "Probably the neighbors." "There are no neighbors," she whispered. He frowned, then sat up. The humming continued, now blending with faint scratching sounds against the living room walls. They crept downstairs, the old staircase groaning under their weight. The living room was dim, moonlight spilling across the furniture, their unpacked boxes, and the old, cracked mirror on the wall. The sound stopped. Sophie turned slowly toward the mirror. For a second, she saw herself and Evan reflected back, and behind them, a tall, shadowy figure standing at the base of the stairs. She gasped. Evan spun around. Nothing was there. When they looked back at the mirror, it was cracked, a single long fracture running through their reflections like a scar. "Evan," Sophie whispered, "we need to leave." He shook his head, still staring at the mirror. "No, someone's screwing with us." The next day, the local handyman, a gray-haired man named Tom Weaver, came by to help fix the pipes. As he walked through the house, he grew quieter, eyes darting to the walls and ceilings. "You two just moved in?" he asked. "Yeah," Evan said. "Got the place cheap." Tom gave a slow nod. "Cheap for a reason. You know what happened here." Sophie's skin went cold. No. What? Tom hesitated. Last family that lived here, they didn't last long. Folks say the husband went crazy. Killed his wife. Claimed someone told him he was next. Said the house made him do it. Evan frowned. You believe that? Tom shrugged. Don't have to. But I'd lock your doors at night. And don't go in the basement. He left before sunset. That night, the basement door was open. Evan swore he'd closed it. Sophie didn't want to look, but something about that dark stairwell pulled at her, a cold current of dread. Evan grabbed a flashlight. We're checking this once and for all. The light cut through the darkness. Dust hung in the air like ash. The smell, rot and wet earth, hit them both. At the bottom, they found old furniture, broken tools, and, in the far corner, something written on the wall in faded red paint. You are next. Sophie stepped back, gasping. Evan. I know. It's a prank. Some local kids, maybe. Has to be. But deep down, even he didn't believe that. The light flickered. Sophie gripped his arm. From the shadows came a faint, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails scraping wood. Then a whisper, closer this time, right behind them. He was next, and so are you. The flashlight went out. Sophie screamed. Evan swung wildly, hitting nothing but air. Then, from the corner, a pair of pale hands reached out of the dark. Long, thin fingers brushed Sophie's hair. They bolted upstairs, slamming the basement door behind them. The sound of footsteps followed, slow, heavy, climbing one step at a time. The house groaned. The whisper returned, echoing from every wall. You're next, you're next. Evan held Sophie close, both shaking, both listening to the slow, deliberate steps stop just behind the door. And in that silence, they heard breathing, deep, rasping, on the other side. Then it stopped. The night stretched on, heavy and suffocating. When dawn finally broke, the house looked normal again. But both of them knew, whatever lived there wasn't gone. It was waiting, watching. The next morning, Evan sealed the basement door with a chain and padlock. He didn't say a word while doing it. His hands trembled slightly, but his face stayed hard, the way it did when he didn't want Sophie to see he was scared. Sophie sat on the couch, staring at the closed door. Do you think it's gone? She asked softly. Evan paused, chain clinking in his hand. I don't know, but whatever's down there, we're not giving it another chance. He forced a grin. We just need a break. Let's get out for the day. They drove to town, tried to distract themselves. Coffee, antique shops, a park near the river. But Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that something from the house had followed them. Every reflection she caught, the store windows, the water's surface, seemed to shimmer, like someone was standing just behind her. When she turned, nothing. That evening, they returned home at sunset. The sky glowed orange and gray, and the trees along Hollow Creek swayed without wind. The house loomed darker than before, its windows dull and empty, as though watching them return. Lights first, Evan said. He unlocked the door, flicked the switch. Nothing. The power was out. He sighed. Probably the fuse box. It's in the basement. Sophie grabbed his arm instantly. No. No way. Not tonight. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Tomorrow. They used candles. The soft glow painted the walls in flickering gold, shadows twisting and breathing like something alive. They ate in silence. Every small sound, the crack of wood, the whine of the wind, made Sophie flinch. Later, when Evan went upstairs to grab blankets, Sophie stayed in the living room. She thought she heard whispering again, faint, low, like a man talking just outside the window. She turned her head slowly. The whisper grew clearer. Don't let him see. Her skin prickled. Evan, she called. No answer. The whisper came again, closer this time, right beside her ear. He's already chosen. The candle nearest her blew out. She spun around, her breath caught in her throat. In the dim light from the kitchen, She saw the outline of someone standing at the top of the stairs, tall, thin, face hidden in shadow. "Evan," she whispered again. The figure didn't move. When Evan finally stepped out of the bedroom, from the opposite hallway, the shadow at the stairs dissolved like smoke. Sophie's scream caught halfway out. He rushed to her. What happened? She could barely speak. There was someone here. Watching. Evan checked the doors, the windows, all locked. No footprints. No signs. Nothing. But as he turned, his flashlight beam caught the wall, and both of them froze. New words had been scratched into the paint, deep enough to peel the plaster. "He's next." That night, Sophie couldn't sleep. She heard whispers crawling through the walls, faint breaths seeping from the vents. Evan slept restlessly beside her, muttering, twisting. At 2:47 a.m., Sophie woke to him standing at the window, staring out into the woods. "Evan," she whispered. He didn't answer. "Evan, what are you doing?" He turned slowly. His eyes were open, but wrong. Dull, glassy. "They're waiting," he said softly. "Who's waiting?" He smiled, the kind of smile that didn't belong to him. "You'll see." Then he walked back to bed, lay down, and went back to sleep. Sophie sat awake until morning. The next day, Sophie called the realtor. "Has anything else ever happened there?" she asked. A pause. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Ma'am, I shouldn't say this, but 3 owners left before you. One went missing. Another," he hesitated, "burned the house down. Or tried to. Said it talked to him." Sophie hung up. She didn't tell Evan. Instead, she started researching the property online. Old newspaper archives, police reports. One headline from 1986 stopped her cold. "Local family found dead in Hollow Creek home. Father last seen writing 'You are next' on wall." She read every word. The father claimed he heard voices from beneath the floor, that his wife and daughter belonged to it now. Evan found her staring at the screen hours later. "You shouldn't read that stuff," he said gently. "It's all made up ghost stories." She shook her head. "It's not made up, Evan. It's happening again." He sighed. "Then we'll end it. We'll prove it's nothing." That night, he cut the lock off the basement door. Sophie tried to stop him. "Evan, please. I need to know," he said. "We can't live in fear." He went down first, flashlight trembling. The smell was worse now, mold, iron, decay. The red letters on the wall looked fresh. Wet. Sophie followed, whispering his name. They found something buried under the dirt floor, a wooden box, half rotten. Evan pried it open. Inside were old photographs, faded, water-damaged, of other couples. Different eras, same house. In each photo, one person's face was scratched out. Then, beneath the photos, they found a small, rusted mirror. The reflection was wrong, warped, distorted, like it didn't want to show them. Evan lifted it closer. His reflection smiled back, but his mouth didn't move. The smile grew wider. Sophie screamed, slapping the mirror from his hands. It shattered. The lights went out again. From the shadows, a voice hissed. "He's next. She's after." Something moved in the dark, fast, crawling across the floor. Pale limbs, too long, jointed wrong, scraping over wood. Evan grabbed Sophie and ran, slamming the basement door shut. They heard it pounding, once, twice, then silence. They sat on the kitchen floor until morning, shaking, holding each other. When sunlight filled the room, the words on the wall were gone. The mirror shards had vanished. But Sophie noticed something new. Under Evan's left eye, a faint, blood-red mark. Like a handprint. "Evan," she whispered, "what is that?" He touched it, frowned. "What? You don't feel it?" He shook his head. "There's nothing there." She didn't argue. But that night, when he slept, she saw it again. Darker, spreading like veins beneath his skin. By the 3rd night, Evan had changed. He didn't eat, didn't sleep. He spent hours staring at the basement door, whispering to himself. Sophie begged him to leave. "Please, Evan, we have to go." He looked at her, eyes sunken, voice hoarse. "If we leave, it'll follow. It always does." "How do you know that?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Because it told me." By the next morning, Evan wasn't the same man anymore. Sophie woke to the sound of him whispering in the kitchen, low, rhythmic, like he was reciting something under his breath. She walked in quietly. He was sitting at the table, staring at nothing, his hand tracing invisible patterns on the wood. "Evan," she asked softly. He didn't look up. "It's almost time." Her stomach tightened. "What's almost time?" He blinked slowly, then smiled. A small, broken smile. "You'll see." The red mark beneath his eye had spread overnight. Thin, vein-like streaks crawled down his neck, pulsing faintly under the skin, like something alive was moving beneath it. Sophie begged him to see a doctor, but every time she brought it up, his voice dropped lower. "No doctors," he said. "They don't understand this house." She tried to leave that afternoon, packed a small bag, grabbed her keys, but when she reached the front door, it wouldn't open. She twisted the lock, pulled hard. It didn't budge. "Evan," she shouted. He appeared behind her silently. "It doesn't want you to go." "What do you mean it?" "The house," he whispered. "It told me." Sophie's hands shook. "You're scaring me." He leaned closer, voice soft and strange. "Don't be scared. It only wants one of us." That night, Sophie woke to a noise, scratching, coming from inside the walls. She turned the lamp on. The light flickered and died instantly. In the darkness, she heard whispers, overlapping, layered, like 100 voices breathing the same phrase again and again. "You are next. You are next," she screamed, clutching the blanket. Something cold brushed her ankle under the covers, a hand. She jumped off the bed, heart hammering, and ran into the hallway. The whispers followed her, echoing, crawling along the walls. She reached the living room and froze. The mirror on the wall was glowing faintly red. Her reflection moved on its own, lagging behind her real movements. Its eyes bled black. Its mouth smiled. Then it whispered in her own voice. "He's already gone. Now it's your turn." The glass cracked, then shattered outward. Sophie screamed, ducking as shards flew across the room. Evan appeared at the top of the stairs, eyes bloodshot, voice calm. "It wants you to see, Sophie. It's been showing me everything." "What are you talking about?" she sobbed. He stepped down slowly, barefoot, leaving faint, wet footprints on the wood. "There's something under this house. Something old. It doesn't want to be forgotten." The next morning, Sophie found him in the basement again. The chain was gone, the door wide open. "Evan," she yelled, running down. He was kneeling in the dirt, hands covered in mud, whispering to the wall. "I found it," he said without looking up. "Found what?" "The faces." Sophie's breath caught. "What do you mean?" He moved aside. The dirt wall was carved with hundreds of small human faces, hollow eyes, open mouths, all screaming silently. The carvings looked fresh. Sophie stumbled back. "Oh my God!" Evan looked up at her, his eyes now almost fully black. "They never left. They're all still here, watching, waiting." He smiled, and his voice dropped to a growl. "You should join them." Sophie ran upstairs, slamming the door behind her. She locked herself in the bathroom, shaking, tears streaming down her face. She dialed 911. No signal. She tried again. No service. Then she saw it. On the fogged mirror above the sink, words began to appear, drawn by invisible fingers. "He's next. You're after." The bathroom light flickered violently. Behind her reflection, she saw Evan standing, though the door was still locked. He smiled in the mirror. "I told you. It only wants one of us." She spun around. Nothing there. When she turned back, her reflection stayed still, grinning. Then it whispered, "You can't run." That night, Sophie didn't sleep. She stayed in the living room, clutching a knife, staring at the basement door. At 3:12 a.m., she heard the floor creak upstairs, slow, heavy steps. She held her breath. The steps stopped at the top of the stairs. "Evan," she called. Silence. Then a soft, dragging sound, like something being pulled across the floor. The steps started again. Closer. Sophie backed away until her legs hit the couch. The figure appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Evan, but not Evan. His face pale, eyes dark, veins crawling like black roots under his skin. "Stay away from me," she whispered. He tilted his head. "It doesn't want you to stay." "What is it, Evan?" He smiled, a slow, painful grin. "It showed me everything. The couples before us. The families. They thought they could escape." He stepped closer. "It wants to keep one and replace the other." She raised the knife, trembling. "Don't make me." He grabbed her wrist easily, strength unnatural. His skin burned cold. "You don't understand," he whispered. "It already chose." Sophie screamed and drove the knife into his shoulder. He didn't flinch. He just leaned closer, his breath cold on her face. "Now it's your turn." Then he let go. He walked to the basement door, opened it, and disappeared into the dark. The door slammed shut behind him. Hours passed. The sun rose, painting the walls pale orange. Sophie sat shaking on the floor, knife still in her hand. Then, a soft knock on the front door. She froze. Another knock. "Evan," a voice called. Calm, human, unfamiliar. "Ma'am, this is Deputy Collins. We got a call from your realtor. You all right in there?" Sophie ran to the door, crying. "Yes. Please help me." The deputy stepped inside, eyes scanning the messy room. "What happened here?" She couldn't speak, just pointed at the basement. He frowned. "What's down there?" She shook her head violently. "Don't go. Please don't." He nodded once, then walked toward it anyway. As soon as he opened the door, cold air rushed out. The stench of rot filled the room. "Hello," he called down. No answer. He took one step down, then another. Sophie backed away. The house seemed to breathe. The air pulsed, humming low and deep. From the dark, something whispered. That same phrase, stretched and layered. "You are next." The deputy screamed. The sound cut off instantly. Sophie collapsed to the floor, shaking, covering her ears. When she looked up again, the basement door was closed. Blood seeped slowly from beneath it. That night, Sophie sat by the window, staring at the woods. Somewhere far off, she thought she saw a figure watching. Tall, still, face hidden by shadow. Then, faintly, a whisper came from behind her. It was Evan's voice. "You can't hide forever." She turned, no one there. But on the wall behind her, new words had appeared, written in dripping red. "She's next." The house was silent for the first time in days. Too silent. Sophie hadn't slept. She hadn't eaten. She sat in the living room, wrapped in a blanket that didn't feel warm anymore. Every window was covered, every light off, and still, she felt it watching her. She could hear her own heart beating in the quiet. The air was heavy, suffocating, like she was breathing through ash. The basement door stood across the room, shut tight. Blood had dried beneath it. She whispered to herself, "I'm leaving at sunrise." But when she looked at the clock, the hands hadn't moved. It had been stuck at 3:12 a.m., the same time the whispers had started the night before. She stared at it for what felt like hours. It didn't move. Just before dawn, the phone rang. She jumped, heart slamming into her chest. The sound was too normal, too human. She lifted the receiver with trembling hands. "Hello." Static. Then, a faint whisper. "You shouldn't have stayed." Sophie dropped the phone. It didn't hit the floor. It fell through it, sinking like it was being pulled down into the wood. The boards under her feet groaned, breathing again. Darkness pulsed beneath the cracks. as if something massive and alive was shifting underneath the house. By mid-morning, sunlight crept weakly through the curtain. This time it worked. For the first time in days, she felt the warmth of the sun on her face. Relief hit her like a wave. She was out. She walked to the car, started the engine, and didn't look back. But halfway down Hollow Creek Road, the radio flickered on by itself. Static. Then, Evan's voice. "Sophie." She slammed the brakes, eyes wide. "No, no, no." The voice grew louder. "Sophie, come back." She turned the radio off. It stayed on. The static warped into a low hum. And then she heard something else, a faint whisper that wasn't Evan. "You can't leave what you belong to." The car engine died. Everything went silent. When she looked up, the house was in front of her again. Her breath hitched. She had driven miles away. She knew she had. And yet somehow, she was parked right in front of the same house. The door was open. Inside, it was dark. But she could hear him. "Sophie." It was Evan's voice, soft, desperate, human. She wanted to run, but something in her chest, something not hers, pulled her forward. Her body moved before her mind could stop it. She stepped through the doorway. The air turned freezing. "Evan," she whispered. The voice came from the living room. "Down here." The basement door was open again, stairs descending into endless dark. Sophie took a step toward it. Then another. The light above flickered, dimmed, and went out. She descended slowly, one hand on the wall, the other clutching a flashlight. The beam flickered weakly, cutting through thick, cold air. "Evan." Silence. Then breathing. Not hers. The flashlight caught movement ahead, a figure sitting on the dirt floor, back turned. "Evan," she cried. The figure turned. It was him, but his skin was pale gray, his eyes sunk in black pits. His mouth twitched into a cracked smile. "Sophie," he whispered, voice hollow. "You shouldn't have come back." She stumbled back. "What happened to you?" He tilted his head, twitching. "It showed me what it really wants." "What is it?" He looked up. For the first time, she saw tears, dark, thick, not blood, but something else. "It's older than this house. Older than us. It takes faces." Her stomach twisted. "Faces?" He nodded slowly. "It doesn't kill. It replaces." Sophie froze. "What do you mean replace?" Evan's smile widened. "Look behind you." She didn't want to, but she did. And there she was. Herself. Standing at the top of the stairs, face blank, eyes pure black. The other Sophie tilted her head, the same way Evan had. Evan whispered, "It's your turn." The lights went out. When she opened her eyes again, the world was wrong. She was standing in the living room. Sunlight poured through the windows. The house looked clean, new, alive. Evan stood beside her, smiling. "See? It's over." Everything felt hazy, dreamlike. She looked around. No blood. No cracks. No whispers. Just peace. Then, someone knocked at the door. Evan frowned, walked over, opened it. A couple stood outside. Young. Smiling. "Hi," the man said. "We're the new owners. The realtor said we could take a look before moving in." Sophie tried to speak, to warn them, but no sound came out. Evan smiled at them. "Of course. Come in." The couple stepped inside, admiring the place. The woman smiled at Sophie. "You two must have loved it here." Sophie forced a smile back. But when the woman turned away, Sophie caught her reflection in the hall mirror and froze. Her face wasn't hers anymore. The eyes were black. The mouth moved on its own. "You are next." The mirror cracked. The couple screamed. And somewhere deep under the floorboards, the house began to whisper again. Hundreds of voices, overlapping, chanting one phrase in unison. "You are next. You are next. You are next." The door slammed shut. The house sighed, settling, waiting.